Hello, and welcome to the Minimalist EDC. My name's Chris, and today I have for you a review and final thoughts on the Pena X Series Bravo. So this little guy right here has been a mainstay in my pocket for the past month or so, and I am digging it. So this is going to be, if you already don't know, it's going to be a fairly positive review, but I do have some criticisms that I have as well, and we'll get to those in a minute. So what we have here is a knife made by Riot for Enrique Pena for his X series. So you see right here the X series, and that is production versions of his custom knives. And so the Bravo, the first time to my knowledge it ever got made as a part of the X series was a Knife Joy exclusive, this is when I picked this guy up, and he recently released it on his website as well. So hopefully more will go out and they'll be in the hands of the public soon enough. So what we have here is a micarta scale, titanium liner lock, M390. So those are what you need to know about materials. As far as how it's constructed, I have some thoughts on that. We're going to get to it in a few minutes. First, just so that we're all on the same page about what this guy looks like and what its stats are, here is your crisp American $2 bill. We have the Bravo. I'm going to give you a size comparison of another knife in the X series, which is the Mula. This is a very similar knife, and we're going to talk about it more as we go through this review. And then a budget option, the QSP Penguin, which honestly does a very good job as a budget alternative to something like this. You end up with a lot of the same features for a much cheaper price. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about each of these in relation to it, because I do feel that it makes a lot of sense to talk about other knives in relation to the one we're discussing, so that we have a good perspective on what we're talking about. So let's talk about what I like here. I think the micarta is done exceptionally well. Like it's contoured, it's soft, and yet still very grippy, like you want micarta to be. It's already taking on a patina. This was the OD green. They offered a natural micarta and a black micarta as well. And so from my use day to day, it's already taking on a bit of patina, which I love to see. I like to see a knife become personalized based on use. It also has a copper backspacer back here, which will also patina. It's already starting to get a little bit of that oxidation, which I'm looking forward to seeing how that ends up. It also has copper pivot collars, which I've given some thought to. Like I like the idea of the copper on brass look that these things have. I was thinking that as this thing patinas and ages, I may periodically disassemble it, clean the pivot collar and the pivot to have a shiny pop around the ring here, and the rest of it allow it to just age gracefully. So we'll see how that goes. Another thing I like aesthetically about this guy is its attention to detail on the anodization. Quite honestly, I'll be real with you. I don't know if this is anodization or if it's PVD coating or what, but if you look at the thumb studs, see if I can get a better view of that. The thumb studs have a green coloration. The pocket clip, green coloration. Even the visible screws. So you have the two pocket screws there. The heads of those are green, as well as the body screw right here is green. So the attention to detail is phenomenal. I highly applaud Mr. Pena for not just putting shiny screws in there that would distract from the way that this thing looks. On the negative of the aesthetics, I am not a huge fan of the pocket clip. If you've seen any of my other videos regarding Pena's knives, like I don't care for the pocket clips. I have a growing graveyard of them over here. So why don't I like it? It doesn't look bad. Like that's not my problem. It's functionally bad, because if you look and see like where the pocket line is, it's right here. So if you're carrying this thing, like this much is sticking out of your pocket. Like you got this blade sticking out of your pocket, like just glaringly obvious. So do not care for the way that this thing carries. That is one of my few and only aesthetic knocks on this guy. Everything else was done exceptionally well. Even the liners are treated with that green coloration. The I have a few knocks on the functionality, and we'll get to those here in a second. So I'm going to just pop on the clip that I prefer, and I'm going to continue the review from there. Okay, all switched out. And the reason I want to continue the review in the configuration is like this is because this is the configuration in which I experience the knife, the way that it has been in my pocket every day. So I feel it's a more honest opinion that you see how I actually experience the knife, not in its stock configuration. So the clip will be there if you for visualization, but this is the configuration that I've been carrying it in, and I would prefer to have the green coloration on this clip, but the stonewash look that this has is also perfectly acceptable for me. So the only other modification that I've done is I reprofiled the blade. So when the blade has a pretty thick blade stock, but also like a pretty thick grind on it as well, you end up with, like, I believe it was a 30-degree edge, and I reprofiled it down to a 20. Just for my day-to-day tasks, that thinner edge and a little bit sharper is better for what I need it for. So take that for what you will. It does come with a pretty chunky edge. So let's talk about its mechanics. So this knife has multiple deployment options. You end up with thumb studs and a flipper tab. So the thumb studs are great. Like, they are perfectly positioned. You can get the Spidey flick down. You get the regular flick, but you also have the jimping on the top flipper, and it's not a crazy amount of exposed steel up here, but it is very functional. So this is the type of jimping I really like. It is shallow, and it is, I don't want to say sharp, but it's grippy. It's not going to tear up your thumb or anything. And so this type of, it grips your thumb very well and just allows you to pop it open. So I very much like having multiple deployment options, and this works for me exceptionally well. So that's what I like. One of the things I like about it mechanically. I also mechanically really appreciate what they've done with the liner lock. So we're going to talk about this in relation to the Mula here in just a second, but the liner lock has good engagement. There's no blade play whatsoever, and it's going to be hard to see in here, but yeah. So we actually have it's a titanium liner lock with a steel insert. I personally have not seen that in another knife, and I really appreciate it because the steel on steel is going to definitely increase the life of the liner lock's blade interaction. Whereas the titanium on steel, you have more issues with lock stick and other things. So I thought this was a phenomenal compromise for having a titanium liner lock and still having steel on steel interaction in the lockup. So mechanically, I think that's phenomenal. I like and don't like the weight of this knife. This thing is substantial. So just to give you an idea what we're dealing with. Almost a 4-ounce knife, 3.9. The Mula is a little bit lighter at 3.8, and then the other knife we were talking about, the Penguin, at 3.4. So it's substantial in the hand. It doesn't. This is weird. It feels bigger than it is. Like it's rock solid. It's dense. There's a lot of steel. And you have this backspacer that is weighty as well. So there is some weight here. It does feel substantial in the hand, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's, a chunky knife. Especially with the action being so good, because this thing is phenomenal action. Let's go back to the liner lock. One of the things that Pena has done in the past, and he did very well on the Mula, is if you see this is a bolster lock, of course, but in that bolster lock, you have these little dimples that very readily accept your finger and allow you to get the lock pushed over and closed. On the Bravo, this feature was not carried forward or not used. So the liner lock is pretty much in line with the blade, or sorry, the handles, the scale material. So how do I want to say this? It's not hard to get your finger in here and to engage the lock bar. And it's not hard at all. But what I would appreciate is the jimping or the dimpling that he did on this one in that liner lock to help out with just a little bit of gription, as Nick Chabaz would say. So that is one of my, not a complaint, but like I would see that as a room for improvement. Another thing with a lock bar is, and you see this on some other lock bars with micarta scales, you have this the space right here where, like, if you push this over, it can pinch you. Like your thumb skin can get caught in that little groove as you're pushing it over, and like it's not really enough to hurt or anything, but it is annoying as you're pushing it over, disengaged. Now your thumb is stuck because it's pinched a little bit. I have a plan to alleviate that. I think I'm going to take the scale off and then use my Dremel to smooth over this surface right here to where it's more of a curved surface than just a flat drop off where the slab of micarta is, and hopefully alleviate that a little bit. Not a huge complaint, but it's something to be aware of. Next, a functional thing that I would love to have seen on this knife is a hollow grind. So like I said before, this thing is a substantial blade steel, and it does get decently thin down here, but like a hollow grind on this knife and this kind of configuration would have been phenomenal. That way you have much more slicey edge, and I personally just love hollow grinds. It's just a personal preference of mine. So I think this would have been a perfect platform for that. The last bone to pick I have with this knife is going to be its pivot. So the pivot is free spinning. So which means there is nothing to stop this thing from just spinning in place. And on his other knives, go back to the Mula, you see we have a Torx bit on this side and a Torx bit on this side, which, while I don't like a free spinning pivot, if you give me a Torx bit on both sides, I can put a T8 in both sides, hold one steady while I turn the other to get the pivot out. Not the case with this one. This was an odyssey to get open. So there was some Loctite in there, and so every time I would turn the screw here, the whole pivot would turn. I couldn't get this thing open. I tried a lot of things. I put the knife in the freezer to hopefully maybe freeze up the Loctite and then just give it a good turn. Nothing. I put a piece of metal on the stove to heat up and placed it directly on this brass pivot, hopefully to try to transfer heat into it to either expand or melt out the Loctite. That still didn't work either. Then took to the internet to see if anyone else was having the problem, and a lot of other people were, and so I found a solution. And the solution is fairly simple. Deploy the blade, take your finger here and press it towards the clip side, which that puts horizontal pressure on the pivot. The top of the blade wants to go this way, the back of the blade wants to push this way, so it essentially captures your pivot. And once you're in this configuration and holding it, you can get a Torx bit in there and undo that. And that was really only necessary the first time because the Loctite was pretty gummed up in there. I'm still using some Loctite in there, but it's not nearly as onerous to get in and out of this pivot in and out for maintenance. But if I had one wish list for Pena and it outside the clips, it's going to be please put in a captured pivot. It makes knife maintenance so much easier, and I don't feel you're giving up anything to have a D-shaped pivot ring that doesn't move around in there. But speaking of the pivot, we have your standard ceramic ball bearing bearings in the pivot. As you've seen me flick this open, phenomenal action, no issues there. Yeah, so I think I've taken you through a walkthrough what I would change. The good is it's phenomenal blade steel, aesthetically amazing. The materials are top notch premium, and there is an eye of detail on everything from coloring the liners to coloring the screws that go into the body. The blade shape is one of my favorites. I like this type of sheep's foot style of blade. I kind of wish it was an actual straight line sheep's foot. There is a little bit of belly on this guy. Not a huge deal, just a personal preference for me, and some people may like that little bit of belly for their day-to-day needs. It shares a lot of design language with the Mula. And the Mula is, of course, a more of a drop point type thing. But the thumb studs that work the same way. You have the same type of flipper. I have the same complaint with the pocket clip. You see I've replaced it with the exact same pocket clip that I've got on here. But overall, I think it's an amazing knife. The few detractors I have are the non-captured pivot. I don't like the clip, and I wish the grind was thinner and a hollow grind. So thanks so much for your time and patience. I very much appreciate a like and subscribe if this has been helpful to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.